over 20 years. I know something else. But then the next moment, this is the way SAP works. They turned around and offered me a new job within SAP. The problem was half the money, less than half the money. So I said, no more. Thank you for that. And let's go to the next one. And I basically blew up my career, vanished into nothing. Nobody had my email, nobody had my phone number except for very few people. It was very quiet and serene. It's also the time right before COVID, so really I was enjoying my life. And there were lots of reasons why I left. But one of them was to have a different life, not the corporate life. I'm living half year with my family in Toronto, Canada, and the other half in Nice, in south of France, with our beautiful daughter. And we're enjoying this very much. And this was certainly not possible to do this every half year, switching back and forth and speaking 3 languages, was being employed at SAP. So I started my own company called Mark Bernard Tools. And I set out to develop some ABAP code, and I needed a way to ship it. So that's how I stumbled across ABAPKit some years ago. I'm one of the lead maintainers. I've committed over 1,000 times to ABAPKit. Well, if you use it, that's what you see all the time. Better. So this is what my life looked like after I left SAP, right? So it was like 2020, all these GitHub things. And if you see, it's a totally different life. Instead of working within a company, everything you do is public or maybe some in private repositories. And if you would look at the last day yesterday, there would probably be like such a bright spot, you could see it from the moon. I was working on this project until the very last minute and making so many changes and additions. Unbelievable. You'll see the results later on. There's some fancy tools. You can visualize all your commits. So I have all the links in the details later. So after spending so much time at SAP and stumbling across lots of open source, I also learned a lot about open source outside of SAP. Not related to ABAP, NPM, PHP, all sort of programming languages have a really large open source community. Not so much in ABAP yet. I think there's still so much growth potential, and we're at the very beginning of it, I think, even though we have had ABAPKit now for quite a long time. So this is my latest project. I've been teasing on it on Twitter, if you're following me, and you'll see later what this is all about. But first of all, happy birthday, ABAPKit. 10 years. 10 years of ABAPKit. I'm sure you're listening. Lars, thank you very much for inventing that and getting that on the road. You weren't the only one contributing, but you made the biggest leaps in this. So thank you, Lars. And if you look at Lars's commit history, this is what it looks like, right? This is his crazy life, unbelievable work in open source. So I take the opportunity. Lars cannot do this himself, but I declare now Lars Havam the BDFL, if you don't know what that is, benevolent dictator of life, or for life. It's a title given to a small number of open source projects where people are making the biggest contributions. So Lars, you're now officially BDFL. I'll update the Wikipedia page, or somebody might do it here during the talk. So there's so far 174 other contributors. They're ordered here in kind of like how many commits they made. So thank you very much for that as well. Without this, especially at the beginning, ABAPKit wouldn't be where it is right now. There's lots of interesting things. You can see how many issues are closed, and this gives you a bit of an idea on how open source works versus working with SAP software and support at SAP, right? So here you can actually see where the action is happening, and every issue is public to everyone else. It's such a big benefit compared to your support case at SAP that's visible only to the one single customer, and then probably only to very few people at the customer. Here you can go back, search everything, and see who had the issue, how it was solved, get back in touch with the person who had the issue, ask them what they did, and so on. So it's a very different model, and it works incredibly well for projects that have a lot of contributions. Well, people working on it. So a slightly different change. That was a bit about ABAP. The other day I thought, what is actually the opposite of clean core? Is it dirty core or what is it? So it was kind of like a typo somewhere that I made. And so the syntax error, I typed syntax error. And I thought that this is actually what it is. The opposite of clean code is code with lots of syntax errors, right? It's where you're using unreleased SAP of objects, where there's a deprecated ABAP, duplicate code, and so on. It's actually a tax that comes due when you want to move to ABAP Cloud, right? Because then when you who made all of these sins, have to pay for it, and usually there's nobody else coming up with the money for it, right? Taxes. What do you want to do? So I thought a little bit more about this. So why is that the case? Well, one, I think SAP didn't release over the years enough objects, and not in a way that they are consumable in a stable environment, over years and years and years to come, right? So that they have versioned APIs and so on. So that's certainly a problem, right? And then the other one, very typical SAP. New features only in new releases, right? It's true for ABAP code. It's true for any functionality in SAP software. If there's something new, you get it maybe in a support package stack or in a feature pack, but then you have to upgrade to the next release. You won't get it. Very different with open source, which has a completely different model in terms of stability across the releases, because people know that their code is used by so many other people. You can't make these mistakes by breaking existing APIs that you have published. You have to have a well-rounded strategy for that. I think SAP got that message. So if you look at how ABAP Cloud works, different story. There it's done properly, right? But that's not the reality, as we know, for lots of on-premise customers. Then there wasn't any clear strategy for reuse. I mean, who knows SE 83? That's actually a reuse library in the ABAP stack, right? Which has like a few things in it of stuff that you should have reused in your code. So as a result, we all, like as the whole SAP ecosystem, got addicted to SAP Core. Right? We kept using stuff from the core because it's such a big platform with so many features. You can't resist the temptation to actually use it and call it, or maybe we should. If you need a change, maybe you copied it, or whatever. You made all sort of sins, right? So this is the thing that we are fighting against, right? And pretty much everybody who has started longer time ago is in the same boat. And now what's the option, right? If you're fighting against the dragon, well, you can escape, right? You can try to find a safer place. Just quit SAP, start new, whatever, do something else. But that's really not an option for me. You can try to strengthen your city walls. You can try to work inside your system. Try to stay where you are. Don't disrupt anything, right? Clean it up maybe a little bit here and there. But is this really the way? So the other way is to attack it, right? You can use all sort of tools, and we heard this morning, lots of features from SAP as well, to help you on that story. But where do you end up? If you really make the move all the way to SAP Cloud, maybe you're in the new promised land, right? But what do you do along the way? Right? And are you then still getting addicted to new features or stuff from SAP if you don't go all the way, right? There's always going to be something on premise. So the question is there some other way? So, and that's how I come back to open source. Anybody know who this is? Yeah, I showed it. I used the younger picture. Maybe this is better, it's more recent. is Matt Mullenweg. He is one of the co-founders of WordPress. His software, his inventions run over 43% of websites on this planet, of the top, whatever, 10 million websites in the world. Unbelievable, open source software. Why is it so successful? Why? This guy, together with his colleagues and many contributors, figured out a way to make it easy to consume or publish open source and consume it within their product. It's like so successful because there are like 50,000 plugins and 12,000 themes that are all for free available on the internet that you can just like click on and install in your WordPress website. I mean, if anybody is using WordPress, you know how it works. It's so simple, so straightforward. And then on the side of it, it generated a huge ecosystem of people who are selling their plugins and themes along with this. So it shows that even on the biggest stage of the world, open source can be very successful, right? You don't have to be afraid of it. It's everywhere. Anybody know who this is? Yeah, I think it's quite amazing that we don't know these people. Here's the recent photo. And I know you have used software from him. Isaac Schluter. Schluter, I think I missed it. No, there's an E, yeah, Schluter. He invented of NPM. Not that long ago, 2014, he invented this and published tons and tons of things around it on the internet, started the registry NPM, and anybody outside of the ABAP world who is doing internet and node development knows this inside and out and uses it every single day. The number of downloads is absolutely staggering. Build amazing things. Now that it's part of it, Microsoft, there's more marketing around it. But if you look at these numbers, like how many downloads in a month? I can't even tell that number. 253 billion downloads. Unbelievable, right? I mean, it's also a way that this thing works, right? Because every time you build it, when you install it somewhere else, you have to stuck down all the modules again. And there's lots of things around it to optimize it, obviously. But the number of published packages, 3 million, is just like staggering, right? And this is, back to SAP customers, how you are using software outside of SAP, right? There's open source everywhere. Everywhere where you look, the world would not exist without open source. The question is, how do you figure out which ones are the good packages and which ones are the not so good ones, right? Which ones have the problems, right? And which one have like regular maintenance and so on. So there's lots of stuff around, you know, these JavaScript ecosystems that help you with this, and tons and tons of automation. I mean, I've worked now with really large JavaScript projects. I'll get to some of them later. I got into NPM itself, you know, finding a bug and then just fixing it in the NPM JavaScript code and seeing how their automation process and how this whole life cycle works around NPM, and how the NPM release nodes rolls up to node and so on. So it's incredible. It works, and this is really everywhere. I'm sure that your IT departments know this and will use it whenever they have to build an application outside of the SAP world. So who said? No, we know that, yeah. So thank you, congratulations, thank you for making this possible. Also, you know, from my side, congratulations to a long journey at SAP. Now, officially an alumni, and well, I hope you sail away to your retirement. So the point is of bringing SAP up is like, there's open source inside SAP. You don't even know how much, but you can look it up if you know where. This is the product availability matrix for every solution. And there's a tab on the download center, and it has an open source notices. This is SAP 2023. And this document has over 100 pages of small print of all the licenses and solutions that are in the SAP code when you install SAP 2023, S/4HANA 2023. It's hundreds and hundreds of modules everywhere in SAP kernel, in the front end, in the back end. Like, you're already running open source. Really, you don't have to be afraid of it, right? It's like it's part of software life, but just not ABAP yet, right? There's some block, right? That where customers are afraid to use open source or put ABAP Git on the system and connect it to the internet and so on. But you do it anyway, you do it everywhere else. Right? So you just have to have the right life cycle around it and right policies around it. And maybe it's not your development system. Maybe you try all of this in a sandbox first, right? But there are incredible benefits of using open source and being part of this community. So what is the status of the SAP, the ABAP open source, right? There's now almost 280 projects listed on .abap.org, right? Almost like 2 million lines of ABAP code published and publicly available. If you go to this website, you see there's like on GitHub, over 3,000 developers have listed ABAP in it. Lots of them with, from SAP and SAP sample code, where you see ABAP Git, cheat sheets, ABAP to XLS, and so on, ABAP Logger, lots and lots of projects. They're very interesting and to your benefit. So where am I coming to now? There are still some gaps. And we know this for years. When I joined the SAP, the ABAP Git community, I was very well aware of that. There were some issues already listed and discussions going on. There's a few things that we don't have with ABAP Git. One is tight version control. We cannot publish a specific version of our repositories into a place where I can be sure that this is the software that I'm getting afterwards. You can use tagging in GitHub, but that's not quite the same, because when you go to ABAP Git and pull it back in, you'll have to go, oh, I need to have this tag and so on. But how do I make the dependencies then work, right? I need to have this project and that version and the other project in a different version. I need to somehow specify how this all fits together. And if you're in the JavaScript world, it's a no-brainer. There's a file, package.json, and you specify all the details of your project, right? And then magically something happens. You click npm install, and it pulls in all the dependencies, and magically your project has so many new features. But there's a few things that don't work with open source. And I think it's still quite broken. And it's gotten a bit better over the years, but here's the deal. As I said, it's used everywhere. But the funding is little. Come on. I mean, you have to scream about this, and if you then really understand how this would work, then just take some examples out of the SAP world. How many SAP notes were about log4j, right? How many issues did we have? How long did it take SAP to recover from this? And run to every customer and say, no, you need to update this log and this log. It was like in so many places in the SAP software. And where's the funding? How much money did SAP pay to these developers for using this open source software? That's the other thing. It's like, we haven't even, there's now every year an open source report. You might have seen it, right? SAP lists all the projects that they contributed to, the project, open source projects that they started themselves. Great, lots of progress. But the key thing that's missing in there is, what's the open source budget for SAP? Like, how many $1 million did you actually fund open source projects with, right? It's missing, right? But you're using it and then you're screaming, right? And you have all the problems. What if you had given this developer €1,000 a month? Right? It's $12,000. It's like a rounding area in the SAP balance sheet. You make billions of dollars, right? But you can't afford to support projects, right? And that's when the screaming is then big if there's issues. Or take this guy who developed Core.js. It's used with 9 billion downloads on NPM on 200. There's 200 million websites or something where this thing is included, right? Because it's a core feature that you need to have stability across browser platforms. Right? But the funding was so little that the guy threatened to stop this whole project, right? And turn it into a commercial license and stop all the open source activity. This happened again, recent backdoor discovered because there were some issues. Yeah, we need funding, right? So there's different ways to do it. Well, lots of projects, they try to do this one. Have a free version and then somehow carve out a shell where it's a premium version of the same solution with like additional features that you don't get in the free in the one. But one comment about it, you make it more complicated for everyone, right, if you do this, because now you always have to fight between free and paid, right? Which one is better? But I want all features, right? And then you, as a developer, you're getting also confused. Like, should I put this now into the free version or should I put it into the premium version? It's very mixes up your mind instead of focusing on what you want, what you're passionate about, which is your project, right? The other thing is sponsoring. Well, yeah, which developer has the time to run around to companies and ask them and beg them, could you please give me some more money, right? So I know you're using my software. Right? It's like, yeah, that's not the developer's job, right? The other thing is you try to do advertising. You don't want to have the advertising inside the software. Nobody likes this. You know it on social media. If there was a version of Twitter without advertising, everybody would use it, but they charge for it, right? We're back to problem number one. Right? The other thing is, sell services, right? You're now the expert in whatever project, sell consulting services, along your solution. Well, yeah, then you're not a developer anymore. Now you're a consultant or a salesperson. You don't want that either. So the question is, can we do better? And I thought about this for a really long time. I think there's an incredible opportunity here, and this is it. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to announce the arrival of APM, the package manager for ABAP. It's the little sister to ABAP Git, a new open source project. And I'm telling you, I think this is going to be incredible. I'm not kidding. I've just finished this the last coding a few minutes ago on what I wanted to show. But when this thing works, you'll see this can be like magic. So what is APM? It's very similar to NPM. If you're coming from the JavaScript world, if you're doing things in the front end, right, you'll find yourself at home. For people who are coming just from the ABAP world, this will be quite new, right? So it's a package manager for ABAP. So it's a client coded in ABAP. It's a website where you can go and just like on npmjs.com. And it's a registry. So there is a full-blown registry, just like NPM, where you can publish your packages and they stay there in the version forever. You won't be able to unpublish them. There's some specific rules when you're allowed to unpublish, just like on NPM. But general, if somebody has used your package and downloaded and installed it, you won't be able to get rid of the version. It's there forever. Almost. There's a little caveat to that. I'm trying to tackle a little bit this problem that NPM ends up with 3 million packages. We won't be in that problem anytime soon, but right, when you search for that, you find so much garbage because there's packages there that just upload for testing. And that's the part that I think we can try to avoid a little bit. So what's the intent, the purpose of APM? Well, first, there's a network effect is important. This is about maximizing the network effects in the open source community, right? And get growth and adoption. So the more people who contribute packages to APM, the more valuable it become to other developers to reuse the packages, and they build new things with it and publish it back. And then we get this network effect. So that's one thing. The other thing is community first, right? This is for your benefit. You on your projects should be able to get incredible value out of this, because people will publish packages that you can reuse with a few clicks in your project. And I'll show you a little bit how that works. And the other thing is obviously this needs to be something that's around for a long time. I can't just like fluke out on this and say, it's like, no. After a few months, I'll stop this whole project. No, this needs to be done properly right from the start. So how do we do a cold start? Well, one more thing. Almost forgot it. Let's talk about money. I mentioned the funding problems before. This is how I think we're going to do this different. I think as a new model, I don't think I've seen it like this in the open source world. Certainly not on the big platforms that I mentioned before. There's going to be no advertising. There's going to be no no pricing tiers. No, not free versus premium or anything. A business version of it, no. It's gonna be the same low price for everyone. €8 per user per month. If you're a developer, you should be able to afford that. If you're a company, it's nothing. You can't afford €8 for your developer to use this platform. You have to do something else. I cannot help you. But there is more to this. And this is where it gets different. There's money in it for you as a developer. So how are we going to do this? Part of the revenue is going to go into a fund. So from this €8 that you're paying, some of this share will end up in a fund, and we'll figure out a way on how to distribute this fund to the most successful and the most popular projects. So over time, this is basically how we're starting. It's with the most money will go to development and the maintenance of the platform, but some of it will end up in this fund, right? So if lots of people are usually consumers of something like this, right? You're just consuming packages, like the vast majority of the world when they go to NPM. A little part of this will flow back to the developers who are actually publishing on the platform. And then over time, as there are more developers joining, we can increase the amount of money that will go into the fund and reduce the amount of money that's required for the development and maintenance of the platform. And it kind of makes sense to keep going like this, because if there are more users, hopefully over time, right, then there's not more money more revenue needed in total, right? The smaller share is still enough for the same amount of funding for the ongoing maintenance. So this is basically the idea behind this, the open source ABAP fund. It's going to be crowdfunded this way. I think there's going to be a yearly grant round. Maybe someday it might be quarterly or something, I don't know. And there's some really cool ways of doing it. If you want to have a look, there's something called quadratic funding. There's some incredible research being done around this. I have the website in the link somewhere. You can read about this. But it's a way to distribute money, funds among a community of people, not just by saying like, okay, here's SAP, you donated 1,000, and you as an individual donated only $10, right? That's not an easy way, a nice way to distribute it. You want to have the same different weights for your votes. So one vote, one factor in here instead of $1,000 being such a high number that a company can afford, but an individual not. So this is a very interesting mechanism to figure out what are the most popular projects, and you basically, as a user on the platform, will get votes in here and vote for the most popular projects, and that will drive who gets most out of the fund afterwards. So all of these are details for the future. Let's focus on the reality today. This is basically what you need to see this as. There's the upper part that we have today. You have your Git repos and ABAP Git, and it's basically this file system in Git mapped to the objects that you have in your ABAP environment. Your packages then serialized if you go up the way to the Git repository, or deserialized if it goes the other way around. But as we know, ABAP only has one version of each object, right? We can't have the same object in different branches. There's only one kind of main branch in the ABAP system. All sort of ways to try to get around this, but the reality is there's only one object called whatever, test program, right? And what's new now is that we get, in addition to that, an ABAP APM client and an APM register. So the client written in ABAP, just like ABAP Git, and you see it looks very similar. And it's reusing lots of the code base of ABAP Git as well. It's the one that client communicates with the registry on one side and your ABAP system on the other side. But it has a little bit of a different feel, and you'll see how that works in a second. So, one more thing. I know there's people who are doing front-end development and are very well aware of all the nitty-gritty details of NPM. So please repeat after me. APM not equal NPM. There are differences. There have to be differences. It's not the same. And for the other guys, NPM is not equal to APM. No, you can't do exactly the same things. We can do incredible stuff, as you'll see, but it's no, it's not Node.js exactly. Yeah. Same thing. So it's before you get to this one, I'll show you the whole thing. So let's see if it still works. Screen sharing has stopped. Oh, no. What do I need to do? No. Can you see? Yeah. Classic old ABAP system on premise. Love it. My favorite theme all time. Still using it. Okay. So I'll show you APM. This is it, transaction stat APM. And as the initial view, it's now basically flipped around. So in ABAP you had the repository as the main object. In APM, your ABAP package is the key object that everything centers around. So this is the package list of all the packages that I have installed on my system. You'll see there's some really great nuggets in there. If I scroll from go from the bottom, for example, you'll find semantic versioning. Yes, there's the full implementation of somewhere as an ABAP port in the current version 7.2. So you can now use semantic versions for all your projects. And as you can see, I also built a little mapper, mapping SAP product versions to semantic versions. So we can now use in our manifests these semantic versions. So you can call dependencies and dependencies on also SAP core features using semantic versions in your package files. And we'll get to that. Then on the top, you see the main commands, very similar to NPM. You can initialize a package. So if you want to have, when you have existing ABAP code, existing application, you want to turn it into a package for APM, you would initialize it. You can install a package that will get you a package from the registry into your system. You can obviously publish one back to the registry in the version that's on your system. And you can, of course, uninstall the same thing as well. There are settings, global, personal, very similar to what we have in ABAP Git, refresh, utilities, database, debug info, and lots of help as well. One of the things, of course, I still need to work lots on documentation, but I think you'll get used to it. Of course, if I click on these things, same thing as an ABAP Git, you jump to the objects or back, and then we have here the specification. Every package has a name and a version. Those are the two minimum required fields. It can have lots and lots of additional information, but those are the two that are absolutely required. There are certain naming conventions. At the moment, people who know NPM, there are scope packages in NPM. They start with an @ symbol and a slash, kind of like a namespace for NPM. I do not support, or this APM thing does not support scope packages at the moment. This will be something that we'll add later on. And versions would have to be the 3 numbers: major release, minor release, and patch number. Semantic versioning is the one and only way to specify, in my opinion, your dependencies in the versions of your projects. So when you click on one of them, for example, I take the JSON project, which is also a part of ABAP Git. You'll see it shows me the README. And this is actually full Markdown. So now we have Markdown in ABAP. It's one of the other projects that I developed. There's a Markdown renderer. You can use Markdown. Obviously, I didn't develop the whole thing. There's other open source projects with MIT's licenses that we incorporate here. But I made it available as part of APM. We'll see some examples of that later. And the other thing is there is this file, package ABAP JSON. This is your new manifest. I know we had APAC before, right? This was a nice try, I have to say, but it just didn't go far enough. It doesn't meet really the requirements of what we need here. So we just like in JavaScript, where we have package.json, we have a package.abap.json file where you can specify name, version, descriptions, README files, dependencies, licensing, where the repository is, everything that you know from the outside world. You can do the same thing in your ABAP projects as well. And the other thing is, you can go and edit this stuff, right? So if I wanted to write here, this thing runs only on the latest ABAP stack, I would go like, engines. Let me see if I got the syntax right. I would say ABAP greater equals 7.89, for example. Huh? How about that? .0 has to be semantic, right? Or you can, actually, this is a semantic version range, so I could label it like this, but let's put it like that, right? I'll figure out how to do a better editor that does JSON parsing as well. So this way, when you try to install this on a lower release, it would obviously balk and say, sorry, your ABAP stack isn't high enough, right? So you can do this with the same thing with dependencies. And that's where the whole fun starts when you have bigger projects. So let's see, what else can I show you? So this is what happens when you click on these. These are all packages that I developed, either myself or ports from NPM stuff. This package JSON, is a completely new thing from my side. And there's a fun stuff called emojis. There's now emojis for ABAP, and here you see like a full README. I went the whole way, right, with badges, Unicode, screenshots, rendering in Markdown. Everything works. This is like, and you can use this not only. You can use this not only in APM. You can also use this in ABAP Git. I'll see. And this is, here we have a new one. Start a ABAP Git in a developer version, back to the repository list. And let me see if I find where's the emoji repository. Yes. Sorry, guys, say again. Yes. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You can.
The DevOps pipeline runs, we publish the package, maybe some hooks work, and some other projects also update themselves with the new version. So did you think of some DevOps experience in terms of ABAP packages? So that's, I think, the most interesting thing.
It's like bridging the gap, right? If you look, once you're in the repository side, what's your runtime? Node, right? But this doesn't run Node, right? APM doesn't know, it's not the same. But it's very similar. So I, on the long term, could see that we do an APM Node client that does the same thing, right? But it's like, I don't want to get into too many discussions about this because we can talk about this for a long time. Right? So I understand your point.
Maybe I'll just add one more comment that like, actually, that's the biggest thing what we miss right now with ABAP Git experience is that it's a great tool and it has even a plugin for cloud. But if I push to ABAP Git repository, my code doesn't appear in my development system even. if they are linked somehow, because there is no tool. There was the project ABAP Git backend, but it's now deprecated.
No, you can set up automatic pulls and so on. So there's ways to do it, and there's ways on the node side, right, and on the ABAP stack as well. What I can tell you is that for the APM ABAP client, right, the commands for install and init and so on, they will be basically APIs that you can use, right? So, there is some persistency, obviously, just like ABAP Git is set ABAP Git table. There's a set ABAP PM table that includes all the metadata, and you can call the commands via ABAP OO classes and interfaces. So we'll see how that works. So anyway, what I wanted to show you, so here, I made extensions also for ABAP Git, right, to show the README files, and actually you can go and see all the other other Markdown files as well. This is an extension that I'll make available, but there is a little caveat to that. I'll get to that at the end of the talk. But back to APM. So let's see how this works. If I just I forgot to delete that. I think I can delete this one here. So we can also show you the where is it here? The database utility, very similar to ABAP Git again. This is what you find in the table. There's a few entries. It's now a strict key value store. There's not different types of keys. It's just mapped into the key. There's always a package JSON file and a README for every ABAP package that you have. And again, you can display or delete these. Let me just delete this because I want to show you how to initialize it. Get rid of this package here. And we go back to the main screen. Yeah. Now I can say, the ABAPConf 2024 was gone. Say init, and that's basically the same, with the UI on top as the npm init command. You will just use the name of your ABAP package, name that you want to call the package in the registry or in your system, give it a version, semantic versioning, ABAPConf, and just click init. And then it generates a basic README that you can edit the package JSON file with what you just typed in. It's basically the same way as you would do it as npm init. And then you have it in here. The next step would be to publish it. It's the one thing that's currently not working. Unfortunately, there are lots of reasons around it. I couldn't get it done quickly enough. But we can. Yeah, with naming, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, yes, exactly. Let's see how we do this. If it starts up. Okay. So in here, I have my emoji project. And oops, oh. I have now my own little project called ABAPConf with a class. There we go. This is like a just very basic example, and I can execute it, and you'll see that it just shows a little HTML. There we go. So okay, right? Until today. No, I think it's an awesome conference. So I would love. Let's see if I get this to work. To say, let me see if I get the project right. ABAPConf project. And this one, what is it? Work. This project. Edit our thing here, and you can see this has dependency to the emoji project. Right? The emoji project has a class CL emoji, and I want to use it in my ABAPConf project. And so I added dependency here. My ABAPConf project is already installed, so I don't have to install that one, but I want to install the dependencies. So now I can go into the install and say, here, ABAPConf 1.0, and I say, only install me the dependencies. Let's see, keep the fingers crossed. Okay, it went through. Now let's see. The question is, I forgot something. Because I forgot to tell you how to add and tell which dependency you want in your project and how to do it, and that gets back to your naming. So this is not hard-coded naming. You can use any package name you want. It just has to be its own package to fit the dependency. I kind of decided to use just underscore modules for the next level. Kind of makes sense. And then we do some crazy stuff. I have to tell the thing how I want this emoji project in here. So I'm adding an include, and in here, let me show you the. So the emoji project is just like a. Set CL emoji, and see this. It does lots of stuff, including all the definitions of the emojis. But in here, I do something crazy. Watch out. I'll say. If it lets me type. I think it's pretty slow here. Import. Star. 2. Come on. And I do like a bit of crazy stuff because ABAPConf 2 and from the emoji project. And looks kind of crazy like ABAP. But I can actually activate it. No, I did not. I did not mess with the kernel. It just happens that ABAP does not complain about the syntax that I use here. Obviously, I'm not sure if you want to use it like this. I use it like this because actually I parse the tokens and can interpret that with APM. If you don't like it, we can also make this like something like this, or just like a comment in the code. It just has to be somewhere. Star actually is a regular expression. So how can you install dependencies? I have to tell you first what a dependency is. It's an ABAP module. You can't just install any ABAP project as dependencies. It's way too complex. So we'll start basic. Maybe over the years, this will expand into other objects types. So an ABAP module is an ABAP package with at least one ABAP class. Straightforward. You can add more ABAP classes to it. Interfaces are supported, but so far no other objects. Maybe over the course of time, we'll add data dictionary and other stuff to it as well. We will start simple. So to import the project, the fastest way is to use star. Star is actually a regular expression that uses set, CL, and the rest of the class and interface names. So you can map them here to your own naming conventions. This could also be namespaces, so you can move it into namespace as well. So it's a way to import complete packages into another namespace, something that was required by many other projects as well. So let's go back to APM. Did I activate it yet? No. Go back here. Let's try this again. No, that wasn't correct. So, dependencies. All right, so now refresh this here. We'll see another class. That ABAPConf emoji, right? So this is how you get it from the original project into your own project. And now I could go into my original code here. Actually see if this works. Nothing is not the. I don't know what it is. I'll get rid of this and replace it with this. Does it work? Hobbling along. I don't know where, but I'll grab the code from somewhere else. Yeah. All right. Sorry for the little delay here. Keyboard works better. Yeah. Okay. Let's better activate. Okay, so now you can see here I used the renamed class. It copies and renames it. And there we go. Now you can see emojis in ABAP as well. All right. So lots more. The only call to action, this is the website, abapcm.com. Go there, sign up. I'll need a few more weeks probably to sort out the legal things because running a registry, not such a trivial thing. I just can't do that with my own, but private company, I have to have like a real company entity for that, privacy policies and so on. So that's all of that is being set up. And then you'll get notified when it's ready to use. Hopefully we'll all create lots of packages and share it with the community. Well, this is for you to share your ABAP code with others, leverage from the other projects as well, use them in yours, and hopefully we'll see open source everywhere in the ABAP world. All right, thank you.